Legendary disco producer Frank Farian, founder and mastermind behind the hit 1970s band Boney M, has died on January 23 at the age of 82, according to his family.
In 1974, Frank Farian recorded a disco song alone in his studio. He sang both the deep male voice and the high notes. Then he found 4 dancers to pretend they were the band. For decades, millions believed Bobby Farrell was singing those hits. But it was all fake. The real voices belonged to someone else entirely. When Bobby died in 2010, he was broke and alone. Meanwhile, Farian had made over $50 million. The truth about who really sang those songs would destroy everything fans thought they knew about Boney M. In 1974, Frank Farian was a struggling music producer in Germany. He was 33 years old, and nobody really knew his name. One night, alone in the studio, he recorded a strange disco song called "Baby Do You Wanna Bump." He used his own voice for both the deep male parts and the high falsetto. Then, without telling anyone the truth, he released the song under the fake name Boney M. To his surprise, the song became a hit in the Netherlands and Belgium in early 1975. That's when he made a bold move. He decided to find real people to go on TV and pretend to be the band. But he never planned for them to actually sing. He already knew he would keep recording everything himself while they danced and lip-synced. The lie started there, and it never stopped. Maisie Williams joined the group in 1975. She was 24, from Montserrat, and had just won the Miss Black Beautiful contest 2 years earlier. A talent agent had spotted her at a restaurant and asked if she could sing. Maisie didn't want to miss the chance, so she said yes, but she had no idea what was waiting for her. Frank Farian never planned to use her voice at all. In a 1978 interview, he openly said her voice wasn't good enough for the music. Maisie found out the hard way, watching herself perform songs she had never actually recorded. All she got was performance money. No royalties, no credit. She had once led her own group called Black Beautiful People. Now she was just lip-syncing someone else's work. Bobby Farrell's story was just as heartbreaking. He was 26 and came from Aruba. Farian hired him in 1975 because he was a wild dancer, full of energy, but Bobby couldn't sing the deep voice fans heard on records. That voice was Farian's. During live shows, Bobby moved his lips to the playback like a puppet. Fans thought it was him singing. But whenever the mic was live, people noticed his real voice didn't match. He spent his entire Boney M career dancing to someone else's voice. He never got to be the artist he appeared to be. The name Boney M sounded exotic, but it came from something very ordinary. In 1974, Farian saw the ending credits of an Australian detective show called Boney. He liked how it sounded, so he repeated it in his head. Boney, Boney, Boney. Then he added the letter M for rhythm. There was no mystery behind it, but that random name would soon be tied to some of the most famous disco hits in history. In 1975, Farian started tightening his grip. He gave everyone strict contracts. The group members were only paid for performing, not for the records themselves. Since Farian was doing most of the recording, he kept all the royalties. That meant even when Boney M had 38 top 10 hits in Germany between 1975 and 1988, with 15 of those reaching #1, the performers on stage got only a small cut. Even when 3 of their songs became some of Britain's top-selling singles of all time, the people dancing in front of the crowd were treated like hired workers. Farian made millions and collected over 800 gold and platinum awards. The performers who brought the group to life stayed in the shadows. Then came 1976. That year, Daddy Cool changed everything. During a TV performance on Musikladen, the group exploded into stardom. The song hit number 6 in the UK and number 1 in Germany. But again, the voice saying, "She's crazy like a fool," wasn't Bobby Farrell. It was Frank Farian. Bobby danced with flair, but his mic was off. Farian later admitted the group existed just to give life to his music on stage. From the start, Boney M was designed as an illusion. In 1977, they released Ma Baker. It was based on a real outlaw named Ma Barker, but Farian changed the name to Baker because he thought it sounded better. The lyrics called her the meanest cat in old Chicago, but real history said she wasn't a gang leader. She was more like a mother who couldn't control her sons. The song even claimed she died in a shootout where she fought back. In truth, she was killed in gunfire, but never fired a weapon. Historians believe J. Edgar Hoover exaggerated her story to justify her death. Farian turned that into disco fiction. Their first album, Take the Heat Off Me, came out in 1976. It was a lie, too. Maisie Williams didn't sing a single word on it. Farian thought her voice didn't fit, so he used session singers instead. Only Liz Mitchell and Marcia Barrett, two Jamaican vocalists, actually sang. Farian did all the male vocals. Half the group's faces weren't even on the record. That truth didn't fully come out until 1978, leaving Maisie humiliated and pushed aside from the success. Then in 1977, something almost exposed it all. During a live European tour, a technical glitch hit the stage. The playback stopped working while Bobby Farrell kept miming. Suddenly, there was no sound. The audience saw him moving his mouth while nothing came out. It was awkward, and it nearly blew their cover. Journalists started asking questions, but the management kept it quiet and continued the show as if nothing had happened. Another big hit in 1976 was Sunny. It topped charts in several countries. But behind the scenes, Farian kept the money flowing his way. Legal fights later showed that the performers got flat fees while Farian owned the rights. When members tried to use the Boney M name, Farian blocked them. He sent legal letters. He even banned people from his studios for speaking out. One former member said Farian was very revengeful. They weren't just fighting over money. They were fighting for the right to be recognized. In 1978, Rivers of Babylon sold over 2 million copies in the UK and stayed number 1 for 5 weeks. But it wasn't even their song. It was originally written in 1970 by a Jamaican group called the Melodians. The lyrics came from Psalms 19 and 137. When Boney M released their version, the first copies didn't credit the original writers at all. Farian and his co-writer put their names on it instead. The Melodians sued. They hadn't given permission. Eventually, a deal was reached, and later versions added the correct credits. But the damage was done. It was another example of Farian taking what he wanted and only fixing things when forced. That same year, in December 1978, Boney M toured the Soviet Union. It was supposed to be a huge cultural moment, but their song Rasputin upset the Russian government. The lyrics claimed Rasputin was the lover of the Russian queen, which officials saw as insulting. KGB agents came to the shows, dressed like regular people. If anyone clapped too much or danced too wildly, they were removed. The crowd had to sit still. The group had never seen such cold silence before. It was a strange show in a place where history and politics were taken very seriously. Rasputin also brought criticism from historians. They said the song was filled with falsehoods. Rasputin wasn't a playboy. He was a mystic, connected to the Tsar's family because of his healing claims. There's no proof he had a romance with the queen. Farian had turned a complex man into a cartoon character, calling him Russia's greatest love machine, just to sell records. Russian scholars were angry. They said he was using serious history as a joke. By 1979, Bobby Farrell's behavior started causing problems. He missed rehearsals. He acted strange. The band had a tight tour schedule, especially in the US. Farian didn't want delays, so quietly, he found someone who looked like Bobby and used him as a stand-in for some shows. Fans never knew. It wasn't just about the voice anymore. Now, even the body on stage might not be real. In 1980, Boney M released The Magic of Boney M, 20 golden hits. It reached #1 in the UK, but something inside the album shocked fans. The credits showed Liz Mitchell sang lead on 12 tracks. Marcia Barrett got credit for only 1. But Barrett had done much more. Her strong voice, especially on reggae tracks, was a big part of their sound. She even sang on No Woman, No Cry, but Farian gave the credit to Mitchell. Barrett's voice was hidden. Her name was pushed aside. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about power. Farian decided who got seen, who got heard, and who got paid. The women behind the hits didn't always get the credit they deserved. In 1981, Bobby Farrell finally exploded. For years, he had mimed deep male vocals that weren't even his. All those performances, all those TV shows, and yet, his voice was never on the actual records. It was Frank Farian, the producer, who sang those parts. Bobby had had enough. After working on the album Bunu Onu Onus, he quit. He said he couldn't go on pretending. Without him, they couldn't promote the album properly. That moment pulled the curtain back on the illusion behind Boney M. Only Liz Mitchell and Marcia Barrett actually sang in the studio. Everything else had been smoke and mirrors. But walking away didn't free him. Legal trouble followed. Frank Farian had built contracts that held everyone in place, even when they wanted to speak out or take control of their own music. In 1982, another storm hit. Marcia Barrett was going through a personal crisis. She couldn't continue performing as usual. At the same time, Bobby Farrell was already out, so Frank Farian brought in someone new. His name was Reggie Thibault, and he became the new male face of Boney M. That same year, they released The Carnival Is Over and Jambo, but neither song lived up to their past hits. Behind the scenes, Marcia's role shrank more and more. On the 1985 album I Dance, you could barely even hear her voice. It became obvious that Farian didn't care about the original group members' lives or struggles. As long as the Boney M brand kept moving, he was happy to replace anyone. It wasn't about music anymore. It was about control. Maisie Williams tried to break free in 1983. She wanted to start her own music career, but she ran into a wall. Frank Farian had never allowed her to sing on Boney M records. He claimed her voice wasn't suitable, so she had only been there to dance and perform live. But now, even trying something solo was hard. Farian still held her under contract. That same year, when Marcia Barrett met Eddie Grant to talk about recording demos for CBS, Farian stepped in again. He reminded her she was still tied to Boney M. No matter what they wanted to do on their own, the paperwork held them down. The contracts made it nearly impossible to grow outside the shadow of Boney M. Farian had built a cage disguised as a stage. In 1984, Bobby Farrell came back for a short time. They released Kalimba de Luna and Happy Song, trying to breathe new life into the group. But the spark was gone. Their album 10,000 Light Years only reached number 23 on the German charts. That was a steep fall from their earlier success. The group was falling apart from the inside. Members weren't getting along. Lawsuits were brewing. Some fought over who could use the Boney M name. Others argued over money or control. And behind it all, Frank Farian seemed more distant. By 1985, it felt like he didn't even care anymore. The final studio album, I Dance, was seen by many fans and critics as a disappointment. It had none of the magic from before. By 1985, the financial tension was too much to hide. The group was falling apart, not just emotionally but legally too. Farian had all the power. He owned the rights. He got the royalties. Even though Boney M had sold over 100 million records, the performers were left with scraps. In 1990, a court finally ruled that all 4 original members had the right to perform under the Boney M name. But that didn't fix what had already been broken. The court battles kept going through the 1990s and even into the 2000s. Over and over, the same question came up. Who really owned Boney M? Was it the people who stood on stage, or the man behind the curtain? Many people think the truth about lip-syncing came out in 1986, but the truth was already known long before that. As early as 1978, Frank Farian told Bravo magazine that Bobby Farrell didn't sing on any of the records. He even said Maisie Williams' voice didn't fit the style. No one seemed to care much at the time. Lip-syncing was normal in the disco world, but by 1986, fans were no longer forgiving. The final single, Young, Free and Single, only reached number 48 in West Germany. Their last studio album had flopped the year before. The group quietly disbanded in 1986. It wasn't a scandal that ended them, it was exhaustion. The magic had run out, and everyone knew the truth had been out there for years. Then came Milli Vanilli. In November 1990, Farian admitted that Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan hadn't sung on their hit album, Girl You Know It's True. That confession blew up like a bomb. The duo's Grammy was taken away, the first and only time that ever happened. Rob later said they had sold their souls to the devil. But Farian didn't seem shocked or sorry. He told the press that he had done the same thing before, with Boney M. It had always been about the visuals. The voice didn't matter. All he needed were good-looking performers who could dance and fake it on stage, while real singers stayed in the shadows. It was a formula he had perfected years earlier. From 1987 to 1988, Boney M tried to keep going in different forms. Bobby Farrell had left, but he tried a solo comeback in 1987 with a song called Hoppa Hoppa. It failed badly. He realized the Boney M name still had value, even if the music wasn't what it used to be. Around that time, multiple versions of the group popped up. One had Marilyn Sharby taking Liz Mitchell's place. But the internal fighting never stopped. When they tried a remix album in 1988 called Greatest Hits of All Times, it looked like a reunion, but things fell apart quickly again. Mitchell left in spring of 1989. Every attempt to work without Farian ran into legal threats. He still held the rights to the Boney M name. In 1989, the group tried to release a song called Everybody Wants to Dance Like Josephine Baker. But since Farian wasn't involved, he stopped it. The single was pulled back after he threatened legal action. Farian then built his own version of Boney M with Reggie Tsibo and 2 new singers. The original members kept trying to tour, but with so many versions of the group performing, fans got confused. Some lineups had Selena Duncan and Ron Gale. Others had Carol Gray and Kurt Dedaran. The lineup changed so often that no one knew who was real anymore. The magic of Boney M's early days couldn't survive this chaos. The tours didn't bring in the money they once did, and the group's name lost its meaning. By 1990, it was over. Not just officially, but emotionally. Each member went their own way, and they all tried to use the Boney M name separately. Bobby Farrell was allowed to use it in Holland and started a new group with 3 female singers. But the money troubles didn't go away. Maisie Williams later said the breakup was devastating. She said they didn't just drift apart, they collapsed. Bobby had left because of loyalty issues with the record company, and after that, the group fell to pieces. Bobby Farrell hit rock bottom in 1992. He released singles like Polizei and Hoppa Hoppa, but they failed. He had no money left. According to his daughter Zanilia, he once asked Farian for 100,000 marks. Farian agreed if Bobby signed some papers. What Bobby didn't realize was that he had just given away everything. His rights, his royalties, his image. They moved in with his grandmother in the Netherlands. He ended up homeless in Amsterdam's Gasperdam neighborhood. A man who once danced for millions was now living off welfare. Marcia Barrett faced her own nightmare. While recording solo tracks in Munich in the early 1990s, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She had no stable income, no support. She needed surgery. Then the cancer came back. She couldn't work. She reached out to Farian for help. He gave her nothing. In a 2001 interview, she said she had gone through hell and back. She didn't return to music until 1997. In 1999, she released her album Survival. The title said it all. In 1995, Maisie Williams tried to fight back. She launched her own Boney M tour and went to court to defend her rights. She spent over $100,000 on legal fees. Farian fought hard. Even though Bobby's daughter later said Farian hadn't registered the name everywhere, Maisie faced one lawsuit after another. Farian wanted total control, no matter how long it had been. Liz Mitchell also tried to move on. In 1998, she released a gospel album called Let It Be. It had tracks like Mighty God and Sermon on the Mount. But sales were poor. In interviews, Liz said she had suffered from depression. Years of manipulation and forged contracts had crushed her. Farian once said everyone could be replaced, except Liz. But even she wasn't spared. In 2000, there was one last chance. A reunion was planned, but Bobby arrived drunk. A huge argument broke out and was caught on camera. That moment spread through the industry like wildfire. It showed how broken things really were. Addiction, betrayal, pain. The scars were too deep. That fight marked the final collapse. A group that had once sold 100 million records was now just broken pieces. Bobby Farrell died on December 30th, 2010. He was in St. Petersburg, Russia. What made people freeze was the date. It was the exact same day and city where Rasputin had died back in 1916. That was 94 years earlier. Bobby was the voice of Boney M's famous song Rasputin, which had hit #2 on the UK charts in 1978. He had just performed that song one last time at a corporate party. The next morning, hotel staff found him dead. He had missed his wake-up call. People couldn't ignore how strange it all was. Rasputin had died after being poisoned, shot 4 times, and thrown in a freezing river. Now Bobby, who had sung about him for decades, died in the same city on the same day. That eerie link started conspiracy theories all over the internet. Some said it was fate. Others said it felt cursed. But the truth is, Bobby had been sick for a long time. His agent, John Sen, later said he had heart problems, trouble breathing, and stomach issues that never went away. He had been dealing with this for 10 years, but Bobby refused to stop performing. On December 29th, just one day before he died, he was already having breathing problems. He still went on stage in St. Petersburg. He sang through it, gave the crowd what they came for, and planned to fly to Rome next for a New Year's Eve TV appearance. He was exhausted, in pain, and alone in his hotel room when his body gave out. His agent said Bobby had a big heart, but was unpredictable. That night, there was no doctor, no friend, no one. Just silence. It wasn't just his body that had been broken. His life had been taken from him long before that. In 2005, Bobby's daughter Zanilia said that producer Frank Farian took everything away from her father. Bobby was desperate and had asked Farian for 100,000 marks. In return, he had to sign papers that gave up all his rights. That meant no royalties, no image rights, nothing from Boney M's music. He had helped build one of the biggest bands of the disco era. They sold more than 50 million singles and 60 million albums. But after that deal, Bobby lost everything. His family had to move in with his mother in the Netherlands. They lived off government help. She said the stress made her father turn to alcohol and drugs. His health got worse and worse. His spirit was gone. When they did the autopsy, doctors in Russia confirmed Bobby died of heart disease. There were no signs of a crime, but the damage was clear. Years of stress and substance abuse had destroyed his heart. He was only 61. He died alone. No family was with him. His body was taken back to the Netherlands, where he was buried. The man who once made crowds dance died quietly, far from the spotlight. But what shocked people the most was the money. Bobby died with more than $50,000 in debt. He had no property, no savings. Meanwhile, Frank Farian had made around $50 million from Boney M's success. People were furious. Online petitions started right away. Fans couldn't believe the man who gave them Rivers of Babylon and Daddy Cool was buried broke. The royalties kept coming in, but Bobby never saw a cent. He wasn't even allowed to perform under the Boney M name in certain countries because Farian had locked up the trademarks. His daughters said they had to survive on food stamps while Farian lived in luxury. It showed how broken the music business could be. The people who danced in the lights often ended up suffering in the shadows. Even the other members of Boney M faced pain. On July 13, 2023, Liz Mitchell was driving with her husband Thomas on the A47 in Cambridgeshire. Out of nowhere, another car came at them. Liz swerved and crashed into a ditch filled with water. She broke her arm and was trapped inside until emergency crews pulled her out. Her husband had cuts and bruises, too. They were headed to visit her brother Khalid Rashid in prison. He was serving life for murder. After the crash, Liz focused on healing in time for her next tour. She didn't stop. Marcia Barrett had her own battles. On August 20th, 2024, she celebrated 40 years of marriage with Marcus James. He had once played guitar with Eddie Grant, but in their private life, he was her rock. Marcia had ovarian cancer in the early 1990s. 4 years later, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She fought both. Marcus stayed beside her through it all. Their story became one of quiet strength. They kept the music going. As for Frank Farian, he passed away on January 23, 2024. He was 82. He had lived in Miami and had heart surgery in 2022. They gave him a pig valve, the same kind Mick Jagger got. At first, he joked about it. He said, "I have a good pig in me." But his health got worse. He ended up in a wheelchair. He couldn't breathe well. His family said he died peacefully. But those close to him said that surgery had been slowly killing him for nearly 2 years. After his death, Liz Mitchell made a public tribute. But it was cold. She said their music had brought joy to the world. She didn't mention memories. She didn't share any warmth. Her goodbye was formal. It felt more like a press release than a farewell. Behind that was a history of lawsuits, lost money, and broken trust. Then came the biggest shock. Farian's will was revealed. His estate was worth over $100 million, yet none of the original Boney M members were in it. Not Liz, not Marcia, not Bobby's family. They had made the music. They had toured, performed, smiled, and sang. And they got nothing. The legal team said this was no accident. Farian had planned every detail of his business. It was deliberate. Now, in their 70s, the survivors had to go back to court to fight for what they were owed. In the end, Farian died the way many say he had lived, alone. His final years in Miami were quiet and sad. Reports from hospitals showed he had become bitter and cut off from the world. People he once worked with no longer answered his calls. He had spent decades dividing Boney M from each other. He built walls between them. He had created a band, but destroyed the friendships inside it. And when he needed someone, no one came. After his death, YouTube videos started going viral. They showed how Bobby Farrell had died poor. Millions watched. They saw how he had been forced to sign away his rights. They saw how he had to use the Boney M name in places where Farian hadn't claimed it. The videos compared Bobby's tiny apartment to Farian's mansion. The outrage grew. People wanted justice. They demanded Farian's estate pay what was owed. Even after death, the fight was still going.